taking the wrapping off of the second monument here. Dave Hatter, Mayor of Fort Wright, helping with his height. Ancient civilization. The good Lord works in some strange ways to our way of thinking. All kinds of animals, prehistoric and otherwise, roam these territories. God's creation. Here at Pioneer Park. I was glad to be a part, proud to be a part, as Congressman John Breckenridge's field representative for Northern Kentucky, to get these 90% funding, 10% local, 90% federal fundings for Doe Run Lake and Pioneer Park. In fact, for 2 or 3 other lakes in Kenton County. And I love this Pioneer Park. It's always beautiful. It does get flooded occasionally, but it's still beautiful. And a great park. I had my Pioneer Days picnic here many times with Monsignor Hellman and Donald and Thomas Clark, great historian, Dr. Clark, one of my history teachers. Mayor Hatter moving away. Now, Dave, we got going up here is a plaque about the good Lord's creation of many prehistoric animals roaming the territories here in Pioneer Park. In fact, my wife June says I was probably one of them.
Yeah, I'm feeling like I might be too now, John.
Right.
To be honest with you.
That's right.
Yeah.
And but it's nice to have this history plaque up here to add to the colorful character and the real history of the area all across northern Kentucky here, and the role it played with the Indians that were here before we even came through here.
I always find these plaques really interesting because they give you some interesting insights into what went on here, anywhere between decades to hundreds of years ago. And I think Dr. Higgins mentioned there's about 2,500 of these across the state, and I think there's like 40 or 50 in Kenton County. So they're pretty interesting. I encourage folks to check them out.
Yeah.
Anytime I see one I haven't seen before, I generally will, because I'm a nerd, I like to try to stop and read them and see what was going on there. So yeah, it's a cool thing to have here in Kenton County.
Amen. I say so too. Now, you've been mayor of Fort Wright for how long?
Almost 8 years.
That's fantastic. And say hello to my good friend Bernie up there.
I will do that.
Tell them all I said hello, and I appreciate the good work that they do.
I will do that. Thank you. We appreciate the feedback.
And Dave, thank you for being the good, honest citizen, public servant you've been.
Thanks. I appreciate that, John.
Well, it's the truth. And nice to be here with you today. And
Ditto.
And I was glad to sing my old Kentucky home for you.
That was nice.
Thank you now.
Good to see you. Thanks, John.
Thank you. That's good. Now lift your camera up.
It's on, but
Now you're fixing it off. Say, you don't have to do nothing else. Just don't turn it off. Don't push no buttons.
Well, I can turn it off and then turn it on when it's ready. All right.
Okay. Now did you turn it off? No, you turned it off.
That's right.
Red light. You want it not red.
Before I
it's not
begin,
red.
Oh, isn't it?
for those of you who are not at the other site
Let me see.
for the 3L
Yeah, good.
highway marker, I'm going to do a little shameless marketing for the Historical Society. We find that it's one of the area's best kept secrets. If you haven't ever gone to the website, simply type in Kenton County Historical Society.org and you'll be there. And we made it so you couldn't forget. I wanted to just show you the two main publications that we put out. This is our newsletter, which has been put out in some form for the last 40 years, and most of them are scanned on our website so that you can look them up in an index. We thought that would be nice for you. We also, for the last 27 years, have put out Northern Kentucky Heritage, which is a regional magazine which covers mostly Northern Kentucky, but we'll publish anything that has a Kentucky connection, believe me. This is a membership of $20. This is a subscription for $20 also. This comes out twice a year, and this comes out 6 times a year. So go to our website, because there's lots and lots more there on books and maps, etc. And also, even though the State Historical Society has a site for all of these markers, we have placed on our site all of the Kenton County markers, and when you click on each one you want, a little window comes down which has added information that we put in ourselves. So you can learn a lot just by browsing. So give us a look. All right, no further ado, I would like to introduce our visitor from the State Historical Society, Dr. Amanda Higgins, will make a few remarks.
Thank you all, and thank you for doing this twice in a day. That's so fun. It is my pleasure to oversee the Kentucky Historical Society, historical marker program, and other local outreach efforts. And what's so great about this is the ways the local communities come together to tell their stories. We as a state are very proud to help Kentuckians find and see their local stories, how they connect to larger American and international stories. And this marker is a really good example of that, and I'm not going to steal any of the thunder for our presenters talking about what this is marking, but we're very excited to be here. I need to thank the Kentucky Department of Transportation, who helps us install these markers across the Commonwealth. This marker will join nearly 2,500 across the Commonwealth with at least one marker in every Kentucky county. If you want to learn more about the markers and those expanded stories, you can of course visit the Kenton County Historical Society's website. But for the state markers, you can visit explorekyhistory.ky.gov, where about 1,000 of the markers have expanded stories, and those are both organized by counties and by themes. So if there's something you're particularly interested in, you can take a thematic tour across the state as well. And as a good former Kentonian, I must say that I played softball on this field here. I learned to swing over there, and so this is also a moment of just the ways that history are very interesting and how we live. I said at the 3L marker that I didn't understand. I didn't know where 3L came from, and I had no idea that this site was at one point the home of more ancient folks. So it's really incredible to come back and to learn these stories as I am no longer a Kentonian, but still feel very connected to this place and this land. So thank you for having me. Thank you for your dedication to the Commonwealth and to its history. And I am done now.
I would like to invite the mayor of he left?
Yep.
Oh, does anybody represent the city of Covington?
He's got the COVID.
He's got COVID, okay. Well, we wish him well. So we'll skip over that part of the program. So I would like to ask Janine Kreinbrink, the archaeologist from Behringer Crawford, to come forward and discuss what the subject is all about.
It will come
It
off.
comes
Yeah.
off.
I can wave my arms.
There you go.
We point at things. All right, welcome everyone. Good to see everybody here. I'm not going to read these because you can read it once it's opened up, but this valley runs along Banklick Creek, which flows over into the Licking River. It's a very interesting stream drainage, very interesting in terms of the setting and all the valleys that are situated along it. And I thought it was really appropriate for the marker to be here because we know a fair amount of what went on here during the prehistoric time period because of some excavations, as your handout notes, in 1925. There were also excavations conducted here in the 1970s when what was Gibson Greeting Card was built nearby. In fact, there's a site called the Gibson Greeting Card site, and at least one of the sites down here is called the 3L Highway site. And there were excavations conducted before they built Gibson Greeting Card. The time periods that are represented here go back at least as far as 10,000 years ago. People we call the archaic people. They were hunters and gatherers, but they weren't just wandering around the landscape. We call them complex hunters and gatherers because they knew their environment so well. They knew the soils, the types of soils. They knew what grew at what elevation. They knew where to find nuts in the fall, hickory nuts, walnuts, chestnuts. They knew where to find plants and animals in the spring. They knew where to go find the mussel shells in the streams and rivers and what time of year, and the same for migrating birds in different seasons. And they moved around on the landscape according to those seasons and those settings. And this valley was a center for many of the tribes. We don't know exactly which tribes, but we know that many of them lived in this valley. And they would live down here. Certain times of the year they might live up at the base of the hill in the winter where it was more sheltered. And they would create habitat. Even as far back as 6,000 to 7,000 years ago, they might burn a section to create a prairie. Because at the edge of the prairie and the edge of the woods you get raspberries and blackberries that grow in broken fields. And you get grasses and other different plants that grow along the edges of those kinds of environments. And so they started to create those kind of environment. And it wasn't developed in this valley, but agriculture or horticulture, gardening, developed in the Ohio Valley and in the eastern United States. At the same time it was developing in Mexico, where they were developing maize or corn. Up here, in the middle United States, they were domesticating sunflower and other things we would call weeds today. There's one called Pinopodium that apparently you can still find growing along the edges of the road and things like that. And they domesticated squash and gourds, like summer squash and winter squash. And we find the seeds of those in this area as far back as, say, 4,000 or 5,000 years ago. That they were already cultivating and creating little gardens next to where they lived. Now what happens when you have a garden, right? You have to protect it, right? You don't want the animals to get the crops, you don't want the birds or other people. And part of the result of that is you have to stay in one place for a longer time period. So at least for your growing season, you're hanging out in the same area. And they just kept coming back to this valley and all the valleys in northern Kentucky, which are rich in Native American heritage. And this valley is just such a good representation of that. One of the sites over by Gibson Greeting Card area, which is across the road, we found stones that look like rolling pins. If you think of a rolling pin made out of rock, without the handles, but just imagine the rolling pin part. Hundreds of them were found. And to archaeologists, that says that they were probably here in the fall, late summer and fall, because that's when you have the seed crops that come ripe, like sunflower, and where you have all the different nuts because they were grinding that into flour so that you can make flat cakes out of and cook on like a griddle essentially. So fascinating glimpses into their life. We'll write up a little bit longer things for you to put in the newsletter too. And there's a long article in the Northern Kentucky Encyclopedia that's on the local Native American history as well. So we're really glad that you stopped out, and I'll let them get on with uncovering that. Thank you.
Thank you, Janine. That was incredibly interesting.
Young man. I need somebody strong to get me out.
Oh, he's gonna get out of the chair.
We need some help here to get this gentleman out. John Stephenson's going to sing My Old Kentucky Home while we unveil this.
I'm just
Drum
a
roll.
prehistoric
I need a drum
animal.
Right.
That's what my wife says.
So, the unveiling will be by Dr. Higgins and with some help, I'm sure.
Why don't you all do it? This is your mark.
And while this is happening, John Stephenson will sing My Old Kentucky Home.
It's an honor to be here today, even though my wife was kidding me about being one of the prehistoric animals down here today. And if you notice, getting out of that chair wasn't an easy task for me. I'm sure in those days with the Indians and all the people that ran around these hills here in Kentucky, they all learned many lessons. But this is a great honor today, a great honor because it honors something of history, and history is a light to our future. It's a pathway to our past, and it's helping us understand each other and all of our walks through life. So I'd like to sing for you as former Deputy Secretary of Transportation and former Commissioner of Motor Vehicles for Kentucky and field representative for Congressman Breckinridge, where we helped get the funds to build Pioneer Park years ago in 1974 and 75, and Doe Run Lake. So today, unveiling this, the singing My Old Kentucky Home, taught to me by Happy Chandler. Oh, the sun shines bright on my old Kentucky home. 'Tis summer, the children at play, the corn tops ripe, and the meadows are in bloom, and the birds make music all the day. Now join in with me. Weep no more,
my ladies, oh, weep no more today. We'll sing one song for my old Kentucky home, for my old Kentucky home, far away, for my old Kentucky home, far away. And God bless all the historians, Mr. Webster, John, all the other historians here today. Carl, God bless you and all that you do, because you keep us straight with the history. And all politicians know we need to be kept straight.
You betcha.
Praise the Lord. Pass the ammunition to godly principles.
Okay, that concludes our program today. Be sure you read this because it's fascinating, and it's well worth the cost and the research.
Thank you.
Happy day.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Yeah. So.
You did not know that to call Carl Alfred. Get me out of the chair.
Most of the
Thank you so much. I appreciate this. I love, I love